Here.
Milton.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And tonight, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we have Roosevelt Elementary School students. If you'd like to come up. And they're going to start us, and we will join in. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is marvelous. Thank you very much. You did a great job. Miriam, I have a certificate for you in appreciation. Oh, you are very, very welcome. And I have Riley. Thank you very much. And I have Rowan. And I have Marshall. Thank you. Thank you for making our last school time Pledge of Allegiance one to remember. We really appreciate you being here this evening. Okay, thank you very much. And now we'd like to invite Mrs. Armstrong from Roosevelt to come tell us what's happening at the school. And we'd also like to say welcome back. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be back as well. Yeah, I would say that obviously life threw me a little curveball this year, but it's okay. So reading and math, we definitely have had some nice gains for literacy. Our iReady gains have been 142%. And then for math, 95%. I kind of tried to go a little KPI-ish, so you might see some of that coming through. As far as another literacy thing, I think something special about Roosevelt is the partnership we have with UW Oshkosh. And not only for support for students, but also support for newer educators that can then learn the craft of teaching reading and writing alongside our veteran teachers and our coach. We also are going to have an amazing opportunity this upcoming year to work with DPI and the early reading grant that we've gotten. I know sometimes people get nervous about things, but I embrace that as a wonderful opportunity to have more arms wrapped around Roosevelt and have more eyes on students. So that's going to be amazing as well. Something that I did just reach out to, and maybe this is too much of a spoiler, but I did have a couple of parents coming talking about mentorship and wraparounds. So I did reach out to West High School, and we're going to meet after our principal meeting to talk about some mentorship with high school students and our students at Roosevelt, because I listen when parents talk to me. Also, just recently we had a first grade writing celebration that was fantastic. That kind of touches more on like our SEL and like getting kids involved, getting kids to showcase things, getting families into our building. I would say, too, we just had our first talent show, and I was nervous. I'm going to be very candid about that. I didn't realize their parents were coming. I thought it was just an in-house gig because it was our first time at the rodeo, but it was fantastic. The students were super well behaved. The kids, I have a couple of our showcase performers back there too. The kids were super excited. I just heard some talk about that was the talk of the night at their house. And just the diversity that was represented, because sometimes, we do school and some kids are not always brought into the fold, but we had students from all different backgrounds and abilities that were part of performances, and that was very amazing to see. So I just thought that was something spectacular, and we are definitely doing a year two. A lot of kids are pumped and they're ready to roll for next year already. What else? We have, I think, something also unique to Roosevelt that I was a little bit overwhelmed about, but it was okay. We have a para and teacher. This is going into the engagement piece. Para and teacher appreciation is not just a day, it's a week for paras and it's a week for teachers, and they reciprocally kind of put that on for each other. So there's this real nice feeling of just support. Even when I came back, the support was overwhelmingly amazing. They had like little poppers from the balcony, which maybe made a little noise and a little bit of a mess, but it was such a warm welcome back that you really feel that connected culture at the building. So that's a little update on that side of things. We have a little revival of our PTO that was very intentional this year. I worked really hard with the president in the beginning of the year, and my stand-in PTO rep, Ms. Mendoza, has also been really there for every meeting, and when I wasn't here, she was able to kind of keep things going. We had several events, not only for families, but also for fundraising, so that we have more events in the future at the school. And I know that we only have 2 more years, but we're going to have 2 more great years. So we're not quitting on Roosevelt. We also had many teachers apply for the grants in the district, and I think that was an amazing push from our literacy coach, knowing that we can get the grants and we want them. So we have things such as like diverse books that are going to be coming into the school for our students. We were thinking about having a regulation room that's truly a regulation room, and then vertical whiteboards for math. There were a plethora of projects that were sponsored, and teachers are really excited about those funds. I think that another thing about Roosevelt, and maybe I'm carrying on a little bit, but is that we have a strong PBIS team and core team. I'm not so sure in my absence that was valued as much as it could have been, and so we're just going to revamp and get back to that next year. My own, again, curveball. Next year, we definitely want to do more with purposeful planning. I tried to set the stage by having recess and lunch together so that there could be a common time for teachers to plan, and to plan purposefully, and to plan preventatively, not after a kid falls, then what are we going to do about it? It's planning in the forefront, like what do all children need? So that's just year 2. It's okay. There's always room to grow, and there's always room to get better. So that is Roosevelt in a nutshell. And I think I've touched on all the things I maybe wanted to touch on.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You are amazing. We're thrilled to have you back. Can't wait for next year.
Oh, I can't wait either, because just a little taste. We'll get some more action next year.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis, the land acknowledgement.
As we gather today, we'd like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respects to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda as written. Anyone like to change something? Okay, by acclamation, we will go with the same agenda. President's report, recognition of retirees. We have 3 this evening. The first one is Marianne Bartles. She's a cross-categorical teacher assistant at Oshkosh West High School, and she's been here with us since 2016. Tiffany McVeigh, grade 1 teacher at Jefferson Elementary School, 2002, and James Pollock, building custodian 2 at Jefferson Elementary School since 1992. Would anyone like to say anything? Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to thank these 3 individuals for their dedicated service to the students and parents and staff members of our school district, and wish them all a long, happy, and healthy retirement. Prior to my first retirement, I had the opportunity to interact with Tiffany McVeigh in her classroom, and she's a very special teacher, representative of the strong and effective teachers we have throughout the district. So I just want to wish all of these individuals well and thank them for their dedicated service to our district.
Thank you very much.
I don't have anything about any of those 3 specifically, but the end-of-year retiree and 25-year staff recognition, it was my first time going as a board member, and the tributes that were given to those staff members were incredible, and my only takeaway, though, was a great reminder that we need to be doing that, not just when someone retires, but the incredible impact that each of those individuals has had on this district are incredible, and I hope that we can do that more regularly to be reminded of the difference that each individual staff member makes for our students and our schools.
Thank you, and what a wonderful segue into the President's Report mission moment. I was recently at a strategic planning event for another organization, and the one thing that I took away from that strategic planning event was recognizing people all the time, and they use the term mission moment. And so I'm hoping to incorporate a mission moment about a teacher, a staff member that I recognized in a former life when I worked. We used to have a program was called Catch People Doing Things Right. And I did that this week at Care Days, or 2 weeks ago at Care Days. So this is my mission moment as the President's Report. We need to remember that our mission as a school district is to enrich our community by supporting our students to lead creative and empowered lives. And we do that through our students. And the district has a special education department led by Linda Piron, Matt Kemmerer, which serves students with academic, intellectual, social, emotional, or behavioral disability needs that cannot be met in the normal classroom. There are many teachers and paras that are involved in ensuring that each student reaches their full potential. In addition to classroom learning, there's another part which is equally important, and that's the extracurricular activities that are offered for these students. Last week, these students, along with many other high school student volunteers and staff members, came together for Care Days at West. Initially planned for outside, it was brought inside because of the inclement weather. Kids were able to participate in games, phy-ed activities, and other adapted sports throughout the day. It was an incredible day. I appreciate all the volunteers and all the staff that made it happen, but on that day, there was one person that stood out, Marshall Morin. Marshall is the Adapted Sports League coordinator for the district. He stood at the West gym entrance door and greeted every child by name. They cheered when they saw Mr. M. He gave them high fives, he gave them hugs, and he ensured them if they were feeling a little uncomfortable, he talked to them and said, "This is going to be a great day." It was really emotional watching the passion he had for each and every one of these students. So thank you, Marshall, for empowering each of these students to reach their full potential, and you are our Mission Moment Person of the Week. Superintendent's report.
Okay, so a lot of good news going around the district, so opportunity to be able to share that tonight. Yesterday, third graders at eCook hosted a project showcase for parents, staff, and their classmates. Students presented their research posters on topics such as plants, geography, space, and weather, and they incorporated facts and text features like pictures, maps, and graphs. They also shared original fairy tales that had been written using Book Creator. This event highlighted the students' hard work and research, collaborative skills, and creative writing. So congratulations to everyone for that great event. Menominee Elementary fifth graders recently completed their Family Heritage Project. Students traced their roots around the globe and discovered how their ancestors may have helped shape Wisconsin culture. In addition to creating informational brochures, students enjoyed a worldwide taste test featuring Japanese noodles, Mexican pickled jalapenos, so that would have been interesting, and southern dishes with African origins. So thanks for everyone for all the work there. A special education classroom at Val Phillips recently received a donated 3D printer. This donation was secured by Sean Fries, a dedicated paraprofessional at the school. The printer allows students to print fidgets that support the individualized education programs, their IEPs. To obtain the fidget, students are encouraged to write a paragraph about advocating for their needs and explaining how it will benefit their learning. This initiative aims to help students accomplish 2 IEP goals at once: self-advocacy and writing skills. Oshkosh West is celebrating exceptional ACT scores from 3 juniors: Roman Stonick achieving a perfect 36, Area Bowler, and Samuel Kushner scoring an impressive 35. These outstanding results place them among the nation's top students, showcasing their dedication and the rigorous academic environment at Oshkosh West. Roman, an active member of the Oshkosh West math team, plans to pursue a bachelor's degree in computer science with a dream of becoming a software developer at Pixar. Principal Montour highlighted these achievements as a testament to the students' work ethic and the support of their teachers. Congratulations to each one of them on their impressive achievement. Our FFA chapters are actively cultivating the next generation of leaders in agriculture and related fields, demonstrating exceptional talent and dedication. The Oshkosh North High School Floriculture team achieved a commendable 4th place finish at their regional competition, and the Oshkosh West High School Landscape Nursery team showcased outstanding expertise, securing 1st place at regionals and an impressive 3rd place at the state competition. These achievements highlight the success that our FFA programs in preparing students for future careers, some of which may be in my backyard at some point relatively soon. So, for landscaping, of course. Last week, our school community came together for Care Days. This was mentioned earlier, one of my best days of the entire school year. Our K-12 students across the district gathered at Oshkosh West for the 9th annual event, celebrating abilities and rallying everyone. Despite the rain, students had so much fun competing in exciting carnival games, creating lasting memories with friends new and old. They were thrilled to see our students showcase their abilities and creativity throughout the day. A huge thanks to the choice cheerleaders, the student volunteers, staff, supporters, and donors who made this event happen. We recently celebrated an upcoming graduation of 46 seniors from the Riverside Alternative Education Program, a collaborative partnership with Fox Valley Technical College. This program provided a self-paced environment for students to complete their high school requirements, engage in volunteer experiences, and explore careers. The ceremony highlighted students' growth and gratitude, and we are excited to see where life takes these graduates. So congratulations to all of them, and we'll see you on Saturday. Last week, our district came together, as was mentioned earlier also, and our 41st annual retirement and recognition dinner, celebrating the significant contributions of 48 retiring employees and 35 staff members reaching their 25-year milestone. The event also honored outstanding community partners, including Kim Nguyen as the Individual Advocacy Award winner, and Tri-County Dental and Bridging Brighter Smiles for their innovative free dental programs. The celebration highlighted the profound impact our dedicated professionals make throughout their careers. We're grateful for so many of their contributions, and we wish all of our retirees all the best in their next chapter. Congratulations to 4 of our youth apprenticeship students who recently were awarded the prestigious Wisconsin Technical Excellence Scholarship. This state-level scholarship recognizes high school seniors for their exceptional talent and dedication within technical education pathways. This achievement underscores the significant impact of career and technical education programs in preparing students for successful futures in high-demand careers. We are excited to honor the class of 2025 during graduation ceremonies that are coming up at the Oshkosh Arena this Saturday, May 31st. Please join us in celebrating the many accomplishments of our graduates and wishing them all the best. The entire Oshkosh community is invited and encouraged to experience the graduation ceremonies virtually. The live stream links are available on the screen and at our district website. And finally, a list of opportunities that I've had to be out in schools and in the community over the last couple of weeks. So looking forward to a strong finish to the school year. And that completes the superintendent's report for tonight.
Very exciting. Verbal report from May 14th, board listening session. Dr. Coleman.
Good evening. On the May 14th board listening session, we had 3 community members come and share insights for us. Those insights are summarized as follows. Under the topic of safety at Vale Phillips Middle School, one community member expressed that there were multiple instances of physical assaults and or bullying incidents at Vale Phillips Middle School. Concerns were also raised about the perceived lack of monitoring and response to incidences that may be considered violent. There was one student who also expressed fear for their safety and the safety of younger siblings. It was noted that Vale Phillips Middle School does have a higher number of fights that occur compared to other middle schools in the district. Another community member provided insights pertaining to behavioral reporting and incident coding with our Infinite Campus information system. There were questions about the accuracy and representation of incidences in official reports. Also concerns about the language used in Infinite Campus as it pertains to identifying students as victims and offenders. And then inquiries about the coding process and how incident coding turns into reports that are submitted to the Department of Public Instruction. Additionally, there was a community member who provided insights pertaining to school resources and additional support. Those comments included requests for information about the SEL handbook and its availability to parents and community members on the district website or other forms of accessibility. Also questions about teen court at Oshkosh West and its operation, specifically questions about how long are students expected to wait to be seen in the teen court process, and ways to ensure that students are not missing long periods of instruction as they wait to go through that process. And then also a discussion for the need to come up with a plan to deter violence and address root causes. So some action items that came as a result of that listening session are as follows. The first was to investigate the reported safety issues and bullying at Belleville Middle School and to ensure that we are following our policy, particularly our policy related to the management of aggressive student behavior. Another action item was to review and clarify the incident coding and reporting procedures in Infinite Campus. Also to provide training on the use of definitions in Infinite Campus, to make the SEL handbook and the Oshkosh Way handbook readily available to parents, students, and community members, to follow up on teen court operations and truancy concerns, and then lastly, to develop plans to address and deter violence within the school district by strengthening and promoting a school culture that is proactive, inclusive, and safe for all students. That concludes the school board listening session report, and the next school board listening session is scheduled for June 11th at 5 p.m. All right.
Questions? Okay. Can you tell me the SEL handbook, was that put on the website? Is it accessible now?
It is, yes.
Okay. All right, good.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Required Wellness Committee and Policy Update. Mr. Kemmerer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So each year, we're required by law to review, assess, and provide recommendations related to our students, our student wellness policy for the district, 8510. So this is usually, this task is undertaken by our Student Wellness Committee, which is a group that typically meets 2 to 3 times a year. So their only task isn't reviewing this policy. There are a number of other district policies the committee reviews throughout the course of the year, including our emergency nursing policies. The group also discusses best practice as it relates to both health and mental health practices, and then also provides suggestions to support student health and mental health throughout the district. So the committee itself last met on May 6th for the specific purpose of reviewing this policy, providing recommendations. I also wanted to mention the committee is made up of a number of both district and out-of-district staff. So in addition to our pupil service staff, which includes like nurses, social workers, psychologists, and counselors, we also have administrators on that team, food service members, a teacher, a parent, and then representatives from various community organizations. So we have physicians, EMS representatives, mental health providers from in the community, as well as representatives from the health department and other organizations. So it's a pretty large group made up of a lot of different stakeholders, which is nice. In terms of the policy suggestions that came about from this most recent review, one of the things that the team discussed was having more details around limiting classroom celebrations. That is one thing that is written in the policy, but it's pretty vague in terms of what limiting celebrations actually means. So we had talked about creating more definition around that to provide more guidance to schools. We had talked about providing something within the policy or explicitly stating in the policy that for classroom celebrations, schools are only able to have students bring in prepackaged food with ingredients on the labels. Now, that's been a pretty common practice since COVID, but it's not anything that is specifically written in our policies, so the team thought that would be a wise move. We also talked about possibly using safe snack lists in our classrooms. Every classroom inevitably has students who have different health needs, whether they be allergies or other things, and being able to have a list of safe snacks that can be distributed to parents would make their lives a little bit easier in terms of when they are going to be having their child bring things into school. So along with that, we reviewed and just assessed the implementation of the policy in a number of different areas. So one of those areas was food service. That is probably the largest area that we have to assess within the policy, as well as nutrition education, physical health education, and then physical activity. So just a couple of the things to touch on as it relates to food service. They do a great job of trying to find options that are both healthy for students and appealing. So to do that, they use Smart Snack guidelines to select those items. Their goal is to exceed USDA health guidelines, so they keep a very close eye on those, and those are currently changing to align with the new administration. But along with that, they have to take into account student health needs, cultural factors, and of course student preferences. Along with that, they have a budget they have to stick to, which is always very important to keep our meals cost effective. And then in terms of making sure that we're responsive to student needs and preferences, one of the areas that they often have to make decisions about or keep a close eye on are the proteins that they use. So students from different backgrounds can only have certain types of protein. So anytime our food service has an option that includes beef or pork, they also try to have a meat-free option or a poultry option, so students can choose which works best for them. One of the other things that we thought was a huge benefit, especially for some of our younger students and some of our ESOL students, was having a visual menu that students could look at the picture to determine what options are available and which ones they want to select. Now, I did want to mention during the meeting itself, we had talked about that, and I think there was an assumption made that food service put out those visual menus, but I actually found out this week that one of our elementary teachers named Madeline Knobloch actually has been creating those menus for the past several years. She recognized the need and has been sharing them with schools, both at the elementary level and at the middle school now. So I want to thank Madeline for that. And one of the things that food service has been discussing is taking over that task next year with our nutrition coordinator. So Madeline wouldn't have to spend so much time and effort to put that together. So that's something we're going to be looking at. Food service is also going to be taking a look at ways to get more student feedback for the food options that they select to be able to use for our students. And one of the things that they also are cognizant of and try to do, but will continue to try to do a better job of, is rotating menu items. They try to do that every few months to keep options fresh, but that can be a challenge sometimes too. In terms of nutrition education, that is for our district embedded within our health curriculum and in our family and consumer science classes at the secondary level. So we discussed that. From a physical education standpoint, we just talked through how our physical education classes are meeting our state standards and benchmarks, while also trying to accommodate for student needs and preferences as much as possible. And one of their goals is always to focus on sportsmanship, participation, effort, and improvement among students. And then finally, one of the ways we assess implementation in all of our schools is we send out a survey to principals that touch on each of the key points that are laid out within our policy. And then since principals know their buildings best, they work with their teams to assess how it's being implemented in their buildings. So I included a chart in the actual wellness report. And for the most part, our schools are implementing most of the core components of our policy pretty well. The areas where we probably need work, if I were to identify a few, included our school works to integrate nutrition education into other subject areas of the curriculum when appropriate. to complement but not replace standards for health education. Along with that, our school ensures that nutrition education standards and benchmarks are age-appropriate and culturally relevant. And then finally, our school encourages students, parents, and other community members to use the school's outdoor physical activity facilities outside the normal school day in accordance with municipal ordinances. So those are some areas for us to focus on district-wide, but then also any school that scored a 1 or a 2 in any of these areas, we will follow up with to see if there's anything that we can do to help them get their score up a bit.
Questions, discussion? I have a couple. Mrs. Smiltney.
I appreciate you gave me like the full list of this committee, and I also appreciate that this committee does much more than review this policy and does this report. So I think that that accounts for what the composition is of that committee. I'm curious though. I think there are other parents on the committee who also dual roles, but I only see one parent identified on it, and there's no student representation on this committee. For a student wellness committee, what are we going to do to get the voices of kids to know if this is actually helping them feel well?
Yeah, and that's something we do have to try to address. In the past, we have had student representatives on the committee. One of the challenges is our committee meetings typically happen during the school day. The reason for that is with all the professionals from the community and in our schools on the team, having those meetings outside of the school day is really hard to get participation, but then on the other side of things, having them during the school day makes it difficult to get our student representatives to participate. So that is something that we need to take another look at and see if we can get some sort of participation, whatever that might look like.
Along those lines, I would encourage you to just be creative on how to get those student voices. I mean, because on all these points, I guarantee, at least based off my own kids, they have opinions on these, particularly on foods that's available at their lunches. But on a lot of it as well, there are other ways that we can get their voices, and we need to figure out ways, not only here, but in lots of different aspects, to know what's going on with them. My other question is specifically related to food service. We have a very diverse student population. I'm not seeing representation from ESOL or our multicultural student services group on this committee. I would really appreciate that if we could in the future more explicitly have that. But also, what is our district going to do to make sure that we are giving nutritious food that kids can eat at school? Because I know of teachers who are making rice for kids so that they have something to eat every day. And that's not meeting our goals. And we may need to figure out other ways to have protein more. I mean, there are options that give protein that we're not exploring. I understand there's cost issues, but what have we done and what are we going to do in the future to better meet the needs of our diverse student population?
Yeah, so first off, thank you for the suggestion on the ESOL staff. I think that's a great suggestion, and that's something we'll definitely explore in terms of getting somebody on the committee. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about our food service is that they're always willing to take suggestions and look for ways to improve or diversify their menus. So that's additional feedback we can bring back to them. I know in talking to our coordinator and other representatives on the team, you know, they're exploring or they're looking for ways to do exactly what you had mentioned. So I think continuing to work with them and see how we can really honor and meet the needs of our diverse student population, I think is really important.
Mr. Wright?
How much latitude do we have when it comes to federal guidelines on the type of meals we need to distribute? Because obviously our student population is diverse and probably has a lot of different nutritional needs and food desires. Like, so how much leeway do we get to provide different types of options? Are there any obstacles there that we need to overcome? You know what I mean? Or that we could overcome through policy?
Yeah, and I'm certainly not an expert on the food service side of things, but I know that their meals do have to meet USDA guidelines, and there are certain components or pieces that have to be a part of the meal in order for it to qualify for reimbursement as well. So I can't speak to the specifics of that, but I know there are constantly things food service are having to balance between the nutrition component, but then also the financial piece as well.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm just curious. about those things, so. I guess we can maybe get some more information on that at a later time, especially over the summer is a good time, I guess, but thank you.
Can I ask one other follow-up question related to that?
Sure.
The food service has come up in different aspects and different questions. Is this once annual wellness report the best place for us to have that discussion? Or is there a different report that comes up that we should be having on a more regular basis? Because I also understand it has to do with, obviously, funding too.
But I remember Mr. Nehuns coming in, talking about different food options and diversifying and expanding the selection.
I'm just trying to think for the next time how we can help push the discussion. Do we wait again until next year to ask for, or is there something that comes up more that we can bring, obviously we can bring up something more recent.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe that's not an answer you can answer tonight, but I just want,
Yeah, we might have to get back with you.
because food service just kind of bounces between lots of different areas, but doesn't really have its own.
I think we talked about it, facilities and finances, remembering.
Yeah, typically a couple times a year we'd have the food service come and present to the facilities and finance and kind of give updates on what the program is, what they're changing or looking at changing, and then address any of the questions that the committee would have. We haven't done anything outside of the wellness report formally at the full board, in full board meetings at all. There is a lot that, as Mr. Wright was saying, our hands are tied on a lot of this. It's not just as simple as saying we want to provide rice there.
No.
That's not going to comply with our lunch requirements. So it really is trying to navigate the regulations we have to make sure that we get reimbursements and then where we have to go from there.
So I'm just wondering maybe if it's a future agenda item for
Facilities and
around this
finance.
time next year, also to have the bigger discussion, perhaps at the board level as well. Yeah, but
I agree with Mrs. Smiltnick. We hear about food service in different reports, but we don't have a comprehensive report just on food service, which might include staffing, nutritional guidelines, participation by students, costs, and so on. Need for equipment, would just be a few things that come to mind. When we do our board self-evaluation, one of the things that we do evaluate ourselves on is whether or not we take a look at particular programs within the district. On the curriculum side, it might be gifted and talented. On the operations side, it might be food service, the business office, the custodial maintenance department. So I think it's reasonable for us to ask for a future agenda item that would address all of the aspects of food service in one report without getting too deep into the weeds.
And it impacts a lot of KPIs. You know, I mean, obviously, nutrition impacts wellness, impacts academic learning, and we're reimbursed, if I'm correct, right, based upon how many meals we have being consumed by our student body and
Correct.
whatnot. So it affects finance, it affects achievement. I don't know, it's just curious to me if we have a bunch of students that aren't eating or not because their options aren't well, and then if that's having adverse effects. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'm curious about it, to be honest. Because I think performing well in that area or optimizing it is a positive. And I don't know. I guess, do we know? You know? So those are my thoughts.
I'd like to see it continue at facilities and finance, and maybe it needs to expand with the two of you at facilities and finance. And if we need to bring it to the board, I just don't want to get in the weeds of the board sitting here and saying, well, I think we should choose this food and that food and this, and that it could turn into that. So I think we need to have those discussions at committee level and then come back with a nice summarization of what's happening. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the great questions. Mr. Schmidt, technology plan, 5-year outlook.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is a part of our strategic plan and our key performance indicator for the 5-year tech plan. We're currently at a 4-star rating on that, and that's going to stay pretty close to where it's at. We are going to need to make some adjustments to that. As I talked about last time, last year at this time, one of the tools that we use to make that assessment is no longer available for us. So we've been incorporating into the 5-year tech plan. How do we incorporate some of those, like leveraging our investments the best way that we possibly can? So in the report, you'll see just a few highlights. Want to express my appreciation to the board for supporting our field study for iPads this coming school year. We have classrooms selected and are working on those communications with our administrators and with our teachers to get that program rolling. We spent a lot of time with tech services and making our plans and getting things ready to go. So appreciate the board's support and the community's support for doing that. We also, as I mentioned, one of the tools that we used in prior years to measure our effectiveness on our 5-year tech plan was the Bright Bites survey. That has been discontinued, so we remained at the 4-star rating because we are still using data from the last time that we used that survey, and we're in the process of like what are some options of metrics that would make sense that would measure the effectiveness of our technology purchases and how those are moving the needle with student learning. So one of the tools that we have started this year and we had a soft launch last month is a tool called Learn Platform. So we're using that to measure the effectiveness of the investments that we're making in our education technology. So it supports our research into how is this affecting student achievement. We have some abilities to do some research into that. But then also the tools that we're investing in, are they being used effectively, basically? So, we can ask teachers if they use this tool, and they'll say, well, yeah, I use it all the time, and then we can pull up the data, and we're like, well, we used it for one project, so is there a way we can scale back and maybe leverage some of those dollars in a more efficient way? So we're been building that out this year. That's also going to support our cybersecurity KPI as well, to help us lock down some of those data privacy agreements that we can have with certain vendors. So it'll help us with that part as well. As you're aware, the community supported an operational referendum in 2020 for the Learning Without Limits. And that's been about $1.4 million a year that we've used to support technology initiatives within the district. That's been instrumental to the sustainability of our programs and the ways that we've been able to provide students and teachers with technology tools that support the work that we would expect of them. You'll see, if you look over the report, you can see that we have different replacement cycles and, how frequently different purchases are made. That all fits within that 10-year sustainable technology budget. And as we're planning through those things, you can see, we have between 5 to 7 years, depending on what the bigger pieces are, and then anything that is touched on a day-to-day basis, like if we have laptops, mobile devices, those kinds of things, those are on a shorter replacement cycle, about every 4 years or so, is about as much usable life as we get out of those as well. So you can see the different replacement cycles and things that we have in there. One other piece just to note, we do also include in our 5-year tech plan all of our network infrastructure. So we have switches, we have wireless access points, we have firewalls, we have cabling, all of those kinds of things. Those are eligible for reimbursement through the E-rate program. We finished our allocation for this 5-year cycle. That is up for reauthorization in this next legislative cycle. So we'll see, A, if that program continues, and then B, if that program continues, we'll get our next 5-year allocation of what that amount of funding is. So essentially, they take the number of students that we have, We got a certain dollar amount per that number of students. And then based on our free and reduced lunch population within the district, we get a percentage reimbursement. So the last time we went through that eligibility cycle, we were at an 80% reimbursement. So if a project cost us $1 million, we got $800,000 back from that from the federal government on that. So that's how we make use of a lot of that funding to help support our ongoing initiatives. Everything else, I think you can you can take a look through the report, and I'd be willing to entertain any questions that you have.
I have one.
Mhm.
I have one too.
And I'm sorry, I probably should have called you, but I just thought of this. What excites you about technology and student use of technology in the next 5 years?
Student use of technology in the next 5 years. I am really excited for what our kids are going to be able to do when they augment their learning with artificial intelligence. So, you've been very proactive as a board, adopting policies that are friendly towards teachers innovating with these kinds of tools. So just some of the possibilities that our students are going to have, or some of the opportunities that they're going to have. I think this is going to be a really key differentiator for those students who are going to be more successful in future careers, to be able to leverage this kind of technology in a way that enhances and supports their learning, rather than, like a prompt and paste kind of a thing is not going to, that's going to be hugely detrimental. But I think we're in a position where we're going to be able to support students along those ways, and teachers too, to make better use of that. And I'm excited to see what it's going to be like in 5 years. I don't know. Some people might be a little scared, but I'm optimistic.
Good, thank you. Mr. Wright?
Thank you for putting this together. The number one, and I probably maybe should ask this beforehand too, but I've been super busy, is the internet. The number one thing I hear about from teachers or from my kids, and that I notice, is when we have downtime in classrooms. And that affects all of our learning, right? Because our learning infrastructure is greatly connected to smart boards, laptops, all this stuff in here, right? So where do you feel like we're at as far as not having dead space, and as far as minimizing internet downtime?
So
That's a big concern for me.
Yep. I completely understand that. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind, on any given day in our system, we have somewhere between 30 and 40,000 devices that are connecting to our network. So with that density and the complexity of everything that goes along with that, it would be very challenging to say that we are going to 100% of the time for every single device going to have, like, the internet is always 100% of the time going to work, right? There have been certain things that have come up that, and this is just a part of, like, growing into a system, right? So, our firewall has been in place for less than a year. And we had some changes with the way that some of our systems worked that we were unaware of, like, up until that point. And then we became aware of them, we fixed them, but that doesn't affect, or that doesn't mean that it didn't affect things previously, right? So with the level of complexity and the number of devices that we have, 100% uptime for every single device is going to be a very challenging thing for us to keep a hold of. If the board would like 100% uptime all the time, I could use another like $2 or $3 million for a couple more people, and I'm just kidding. So, but I do, we are aware, and we do have systems in place, and I will say that any outages that we have had have been very short-lived. We're usually able to resolve those relatively quickly. And we've come a long way for sure in the last 18 months or so compared to where we were prior when this brand-new system came in.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked because we're so connected, and I know the Traeger deal was in our control, and there's been other things, right?
I can't do much without power.
No.
Sorry.
You know what I mean? And it's just, that's what I hear the most about. That's what affects people the most, I think, if we have downtime. So if there's anything that was realistic that, as a district, could be done to improve that, that's something I'm always interested in as part of this plan.
And I will say that anytime we have like repeated or patterned outages, we do hold, as a tech services team, we do hold what we call a postmortem. So like after something happens, like what went wrong, what can we do to resolve that and prevent this from happening in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good
Christie.
report. Thank you.
And now we have committee reports. Education Committee.
Thank you. The Education Committee met on May 7th at 7:30 a.m. We had 2 agenda items that we considered. The first was an advanced placement pre-calculus option, and that is that right now we have an existing pre-calculus course, and we wanted to change it to an AP pre-calculus course. This meant that we would need to add supplemental math lessons to our current CPM curriculum, and that in doing so, that would align this with the AP pre-calculus exam. It's estimated that 230 students, who are mostly juniors and seniors, would be eligible to take the exam then. Not that they have to, but at least if we give them this option, they could do so. There was a discussion that some of the teachers had concerns about it, but staff has apparently had further conversations afterwards, and hopefully everybody is happy to move forward with this. But this aligns with the idea of being college and career ready and gives people an option for dual credit, which we feel like is a good thing. So that was the AP pre-calculus option. The next subject that we talked about was the Excel program. The committee discussed the concerns that were brought forth by students at the last board meeting regarding the Excel program at Oshkosh West. The Oshkosh West principal explained that the Excel program was established in 2016 to provide support for students identified as needing assistance, and that this program has evolved to meet the changing needs of students in grades 9 and 10 who meet specific criteria in literacy skills and risk factors that have been identified through the MySabers student survey. The new program, students would be able to have access to structured supports for the full 4 years of high school experience, and that there will be more universal supports in place and a dedicated case manager while having students in classes with their peers. We then went on to have conversations about all of the communications that had happened prior. There was an acknowledgement that clearly having the students come forward at the board meeting meant that we didn't get everything right in terms of communications, and that the committee expressed concerns that we try to make sure that we get that done a little better. The committee also had concerns about ensuring that whatever the program is going forward to, that we know that this program is going to work. I'm going to leave it at that because we also know that the administration is intending on bringing a full report to the board at the next board meeting. So the next meeting will happen for us at 7:30 on June 4th.
Okay, thank you very much. Facilities and Finance.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman. Facilities and Finance met on Thursday, May 8th, and had several agenda items. Our special guests that day were Eric Cass and Charlie Verbos from PMA. Mr. Nehans introduced Mr. Cass and Mr. Verbos to discuss the analysis and best use of the 2024-25 defeasance funds, the different call dates, prepayments, and defeasance. 2 options for the best use of funds were discussed, including prepayment and legal defeasance. The recommendation is defeasance, which will provide the most property tax relief for the school district, reducing the overall debt by $4.9 million, which includes interest savings of over $350,000 per year, which will definitely help the taxpayers. The additional expenses of the defeasance also generate an increase in state aid of $3.8 million for the 25-26 budget year. This will lower the overall tax levy for the coming fiscal year of 25-26. Mr. Nehans introduced Mr. Cass and Mr. Verbos to discuss funding options for the debt issuance project, maintaining the $21.5 million commitment as described throughout the referendum. The conversations was emphasized. Cash flow, interest earnings, hedging against inflation, tariffs, and amortization of debt were discussed. The 20-year issuance and interest information were shared. A parameters meeting will be held in June for the board. We also discussed the Oshkosh North High School Gymnasium. Mr. Fox provided an update on the flooring replacement. There's an older floor underneath the current wood floor that has mercury gas. Air quality is currently good, and monitoring and sampling will continue. Multiple phases will be required for replacement due to the current flooring, and a fall 2026 bid process is anticipated. Mrs. Johnson provided information on a human resources market analysis. She reviewed employee descriptions, marketing trends, and comparisons to local school districts and private industry. Title changes for some positions were proposed. For example, the title office tech would change to office assistant, and school bankers would change to accountant. Custodial and maintenance titles would be updated. Unions were consultant, and they were supportive of the changes. This is coming to the full board this evening. Mr. Helmbrecht and Mr. Nehans provided a playground update. They both shared an update on the playground transition to the Recreation Department. Final designs and prep site for Jefferson and Lakeside Elementary School are currently underway with a June start. A bid waiver is needed for the playground equipment because there is only one playground equipment provider that submitted a bid. And this is also coming to tonight's meeting. The next meeting of Facilities and Finance will be on June 12th, 2025 at 7:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Policy and Governance Committee.
All right. Policy and Governance met at 7:30 on Thursday, May 15th. Our first order of business was kind of setting up the framework for the goals of policy and governance for the coming year, and trying to make policy and governance more substantive review of issues that either Neola, who is our kind of our provider of the base level of our policies, or to ensure that we are in compliance with, or board or district initiated reviews or edits. We did talk about formalizing a process if board members do have policies that they would like to have reviewed, where we can make sure that they get that both admin and Neola can have a chance to review them to come up with final wording before they come back to committee. Dr. Davis provided us with a background on what Neola is and the practices of the service they provide to us. Moving forward, myself as the committee chair will be working with both Mr. Zimmern from Neola and the executive team to help prepare policies for the committee to review to make sure we have a better understanding of what's going on. We're also going to try a consent agenda format to ensure that when there are a lot of policies that have just technical or legal updates, that we don't need to spend time on substantive review, but there would be a process to correct grammatical errors and things like that. Our next meeting will include Mr. Zimmern at that meeting, so we have even better understanding. And on our agendas, we will continue to keep 2 policies on bylaws and policy and governance on that agenda so that we can continue to discuss them. And our committee is also moving towards formalizing how we work within Robert's Rules of Orders. There were 3 next order of business were 3 Neola updates that we voted, or that we did not vote on formally. We may in the future at a committee level, but we advanced to the full board. 8540 vending machines, 8550 competitive food sales, and 8660 transportation. The first two were required non-discrimination statements, and then 8660 was also a suggested change to language. They all are on tonight's consent agenda. We also discussed 3125 Wisconsin Educator Licensing, along with the administrative guidance that goes along with that to ensure consistency. And finally, policy 5550 was kind of our first attempt at understanding and utilizing the idea of board-initiated review of a policy, and this is Student Code of Classroom Conduct. We just talked about it a little bit, and it was myself who had asked this to be a future agenda item for review, and I will be meeting with Matt Kammerer and Anthony Miller, who are separately had been working on this, but so there was no suggested changes at this committee meeting, but it will come to a future one. We have a whole lot of future agenda items, including very specific policies and other kind of governance and policy-related issues. But we hopefully have a process for making that be more smooth and allowing, again, more substantive review. Our next committee meeting is June 19th at 7:30 a.m.
Fantastic. Sounds like you've been working hard.
Something.
Okay, and we have no one signed up this evening for agenda-related or non-agenda-related public forum. So we will move to the consent agenda, and I have a statement that will take care of anyone who wants to pull any of the items. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item, or it's been discussed at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it'll be pulled out of the consent agenda and voted on separately. Does anyone have any items they would like pulled? Dr. Hess.
I would like item 11 and 12 pulled, please.
Okay, thank you. So we will be voting on all the consent agenda with the exception of 11 and 12. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Smeltly, right?
All right, Herzog,
No.
Hess,
Aye.
Smeltly,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Wyman,
Aye?
DeWitt,
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Number 11, waiver of policy 6320, purchasing for playground bids. Is there a motion and a second for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
DeWitt and Wright.
Discussion.
So I've got a question, Drew, if you could. So can you tell me, the intent is still that we are going to use Fund 80 to pay for the entirety of these? Is that what we're going forward with?
Correct. DPI and our auditors both approved that.
Okay. And this particular resolution here, we are waiving the policy because we couldn't get a second bid or a third bid. The policy requires, how many are we supposed to have per policy? Do you-
Competing bids, so
Competing bids.
minimum of 2, I believe.
And
We couldn't get, we reached out to several different playground vendors and none provided a bid. One couldn't do the work this summer. They were already full. The other just found out Lee was, or not found out, realizes Lee, Burke, Lee, they're one company, basically gets the vast majority of school district playground work.
so I thought I read something to the effect of, going forward, we are going to change things such that we would anticipate we would have more than one bid. What is it that we can change to make sure, why is this one, we only got one bid, and what are we going to change to make sure that we got more than one bid
Yep.
going forward?
So traditionally, and this is as part of a growing pain as we try to transition out of PTOs, siloing the control of buying the playgrounds, and transition into the rec department and the school district having more control of that. Really, what will end up changing is going from a bidding process that happens after you get a design. So you've already worked with one of these companies to do the whole design, and then you put the design out to bid. Well, it's basically done to their specs. So rather than doing it this way, we're going to do what's called a design bid. So we're going to put out to these other vendors on the front end and just say, you come in, here's the school, the location we want to have a playground built at. Here are the dimensions. You come in and tell us everything else. You tell us what you would recommend, and then put a price tag on it. And then we will evaluate, the rec department and the building staff, parents, and principal will then look at the multiple different options and be able to select from those. So we'll change, instead of doing all of the design and the selection of equipment on the front end and then asking competition to bid on it, we're going to open it up and say we're open to several different design options.
And so Jefferson, that's one of them we're considering tonight.
Correct.
That playground was put in place when the school was built in roughly 2000, is that? I guess my question is, both of these schools have existing playgrounds. Are these replacing the two playgrounds?
Correct.
Or are these above and beyond?
No, these are Jefferson's playgrounds. Ever since I've been in the district, Jefferson's playgrounds needed to be redone. The playground, actually, they just had another piece of equipment condemned from our insurance company because it's just not holding up. So that one needed to be done. And then when we started prioritizing and working with the rec department with this thought that the rec department was going to take ownership of this, we had our insurance company and a designer for playgrounds evaluate our playground. So Jefferson and Lakeside were the two deemed that had the most needs at this point, which is why they were the ones that were selected currently.
I mean, I think my general standpoint is we're talking about expending $830,000 roughly.
Yes.
And that when we spend that amount, I think the community wants to know that we are getting the best bang for our buck. And having only a single bidder, I take issue with that. So in this case, I can't support waiving the policy. So those are my comments.
Dr. Herzog?
I'm a little bit confused about the practice tonight of removing two items from the consent agenda, namely number 11, which we're talking about right now, waiver of policy 6320. My understanding was that anything that someone wanted to pull should have notified the board president by the previous day, and it should have been brought up during the approval of the agenda, which is why I voted no tonight on removing these at this time.
Dr. Hess did contact me.
Okay.
After we talked about approval of consent agenda and moving items forward. Eileen and Dr. Davis came, I think we all received this. I thought we did.
I don't recall seeing that, and I know I've been through the board packet. Thank you.
Yeah.
It wasn't this week, it was the last board packet, I
okay.
believe.
Yeah, just identifying as we would have things that would, the initial approval of the agenda is for everything that would be on here if we want to change order of like consent agenda specifically down to individually considered resolutions. We would do that when we get to the consent agenda specifically.
Okay, so that's a departure, excuse me, so that's a departure from what we've been doing
Correct,
recently.
yeah, but that was a
Okay,
clarification based on rules.
Okay, thank you for that.
The only point of clarification I would add within that, I did look this up right before the meeting as well, or actually when that happened earlier. There is policy 0166.1 consent agenda that is very ambiguous about exactly when that should happen. That can be another one we can add to future agenda items for policy
I can read what
amendments.
it says. Board
No, yeah,
members
it's
are
just the
encouraged
policy
to
doesn't
notify administration by noon on the Tuesday before the meeting, and it's more of a courtesy than anything to allow administration to have the answers or to research more information prior to the meeting.
I think the concern is the procedure at the board meeting, and that's where there's ambiguity still in the policy that we probably should clarify.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fine. Okay, so I think we're ready to vote.
I think,
Oh,
I was gonna, yeah.
Sorry.
I haven't talked yet tonight, so I gotta throw it in there, right?
Please.
No, I definitely agree with the sentiment that the competitive bids process is always better than non-competitive bids. So when do you see the new, kind of the new approach taking place?
For the next playgrounds that we
For the-
would
okay.
do. So
Okay.
we aren't at this time, we're still evaluating, but typically what we're looking at is the referendum project. So Carl
Okay.
Traeger Elementary will be the next playground that probably gets built.
Okay.
And that would have the new process.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
I just have a comment. I have never been in favor of waiving any policies. We have policies set for a reason. And I think that I had said that several meetings ago, and I will not be voting in favor of waiving this policy either. Again, we have policies set for a reason, and they're there, so let's keep them. Thank you.
Well, I hate to see a summer go by without putting some playgrounds for some students that, and neighborhoods that really need them. So I'm glad to hear we have a new process after these. Dr. Herzog.
I had an opportunity to talk with Mr. Nehans after the January Education Convention because I had interacted with some of the vendors, the vendor, down at the state convention in January, and noted that they have opportunities for districts to save money. They may be the only vendor out there, but they have opportunities for districts to save money by choosing equipment from their discontinued ranks or inventories. And so I believe that Mr. Nehans has done his due diligence in terms of trying to get the costs down on these two playgrounds and yet serve our community and the students and families who reside here. So I will be voting in favor of this resolution.
I have a quick comment. Policy 6320, purchasing, is the policy that we're looking at, since I'm going to be policy wonk here right now. There is a provision within that policy for the waiver for when there is unique or specialized and limited suppliers, which is exactly the situation that we are in. And I get that part of the reason that there are limited suppliers is because some of the design work has already occurred. But there is a reason that there's waivers available, and this is exactly one of them. That very good work has been done by these schools and these PTOs already. They probably even be more cautious with use of funds even than the school board would have been, because they had to raise every single dollar so far to try to get to that point. So I do appreciate the work that has been done by both of these schools and at the district level and at the recreation department level. But again, I want to remind everyone that there is specifically, intentionally, a provision within the policy to allow the waiver for situations such as this.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but it's been something that I guess I've been around for a while, specifically through my children and through my work on the board. It's obvious that different schools have different levels of means and different abilities to purchase some of this equipment. So this process allows us to get away from the haves and have-nots in our school district having or not having different types of playground equipment. Obviously, we have certain areas and sectors of our city where it's a lot easier for them, for their PTOs and those people to raise money for playgrounds. And then we have different areas of the city and OASD where it's a lot harder for those PTOs. So this process allows us to, over time, ensure that all children can play on safe playgrounds without it being tied to a PTO's ability to generate and raise funds. So I want to celebrate that as a district, right? Because I think that it equals the playing field. And the board, in my opinion, and admin have done a good job in ensuring that there's a plan to make sure that we're addressing all of our kids and schools' playground needs long-term. So.
Okay. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Smelly.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Lyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
No.
Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Nope.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. And then we move on to playground bid for Lakeside and Jefferson Elementary. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Smeltly, Herzog. Any discussion?
Sure. The comment back to some of what I've heard is, I get it. I do support playgrounds. I understand. I think the concept of requiring PTOs to be the primary funder of playgrounds was entirely inappropriate. But what we're doing here is moving the funding to the community services, or Fund 80. And that I'm struggling with to a certain extent. It's not the question of can we do it. There's a little more detail in that. And so I want to talk about that a little bit tonight and give a little bit of history. So in 2013, several districts caused a stir by allocating inappropriate expenses to this. And at the same time, others lobbied to get Fund 80 out of revenue limits. And after a year of rulemaking in 2015, the rules relating to the use of Fund 80 were implemented in Chapter PI 80, promulgated by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, and Fund 80 expenditures were removed from revenue limits. It is any time that we look to spend money outside of revenue limits that I'm going to take a much more close look. And in that PI 80, Chapter PI 8002 lays out a list of 4 items that are considered ineligible costs. Item 2 says, any program or service whose schedule represents a significant barrier for age-appropriate school district residents to participate in the program or service. Now, if we say that playgrounds are always available to the public, we don't have a problem with this. I was told by a member of the DPI's financial services team that Mr. Nehans has asserted to them on a recent phone call that we do not limit at all access to our playgrounds at any time. But I asked the question, is this really what we want? When school is in session and kids are outside for recess, are we really comfortable with saying it is acceptable for any other member of the public to be using the playground equipment simultaneously? Thinking about school safety, I would say no. I'm not comfortable saying yes just for additional monies. We have administrative guidelines 8410 that suggests that any non-student loitering on or about our campus will be directed to leave. If we use Fund 80 to cover 100% of these playgrounds, this would violate Item 2 of PI 80, creating a schedule of inaccessibility to the public. Item 4 of PI 80 states that ineligible costs include costs that would be incurred by the school district if the community programs and services were not provided by the district. The argument that I have heard is that our auditor has said because we haven't spent monies out of Fund 10 and that they're all coming from PTOs on our playgrounds, that as of late, that's what has happened as of late, that we are okay, because we aren't doing that. We as a school board are charged with the duty of care of our facilities. My take on this argument is this, that here we are admitting that we are failing our duty of care by not spending any Fund 10 resources on upkeep of our playgrounds, and that because of that, we are good by avoiding Rule 4 in PI 80. Personally, it offends me that our recent practice is only to update playgrounds if PTOs can raise sufficient funds or if referendum dollars are allocated. But I will admit, likely using Fund 80 is not prohibited. But the fact that it isn't prohibited is different from the determination of how much can be used on the project. The DPI has a website that discusses Fund 80 and its use. It isn't uncommon that certain resources or equipment could be useful for both the purpose of providing a comprehensive educational program and also provide benefit to the public at large. It is clear to me that the playground here benefits both the students at these schools while in session and benefits the community. In the circumstances like these, the DPI's website suggests and gives examples of scenarios where the expenses benefit both the community and the school, and suggests that the expense should be shared with Fund 10 based on a logical calculation. In talking to the DPI's financial services rep, she continued to stress the point that we have to maintain the community's trust, and that the DPI has a real fear that if this is abused, the legislature is going to come back to this and impose more restrictive rules. I threw out a suggestion to the DPI member that she didn't disagree with, and that was that if the district offers classes 180 days out of the year, and that there are 365 days out of the year, we could say 180 out of 365 represents 49% of the days of the year. So we would allocate 49% to Fund 10 or a referendum, and the other 51% to Fund 80. But this is just an example of a logical calculation that is required. Clearly, there is a benefit to the school. Saying 100% of this resources is for the purpose of the community at large is not logical. And I agree with the financial services member. Several state legislators are watching our decision tonight, and they know that if we do this tonight, that likely every district in the state will start moving to buy new playgrounds under the same allocation. I would suggest that during the state budget process and debates, that this is the wrong timing to look at skirting legislative intent. To be clear, I'm 100% in support of playgrounds. My concern here is the look of this approach. Assigning 100% of this expense to community service funds looks like we are trying to skirt revenue limits. My second concern over this strategy is with costs. The fact that we only had one bid is problematic, but my other concern is that when we make these sorts of purchases through Fund 80, we do not get any aid based on this expense. If this were to have come under a referendum, and the community would get an additional 21% of the expense back in aid the following year, reducing local property taxes. Using Fund 80 does not give us this benefit. This is a little more than $174,000 that we are giving up by putting it under Fund 80. I am not comfortable giving up that sort of aid.
Thank you.
Dr. Ford, did you have anything to?
Well, I just asked me a question for what we're approving tonight. There's nothing in there about where the funding's actually coming from in this resolution. This is just us approving the bid. Am I correct on that, Dr. Davis?
Correct. Yeah. So our intent as we've presented it to facilities and finance and as we would intend to the board, it would be through Fund 80. That's from a budget standpoint, that's how we plan it.
Okay, okay. And you can confirm that the discussion with DPI, the auditors, that they have their whole decision tree there.
Correct.
About what's allowable, what's not allowable. They're comfortable with it.
Correct. Yeah, Mr. Nehan went through that process.
Yeah, I've had multiple conversations with the auditors at DPI and with our own individual auditor on this topic. It is not as black and white as 100% has to be open to the public. You can have time periods where it's not fully, completely open. It just can't, the way it was framed in my conversation with DPI is you can't have a fence that's locked at any given time. The playground itself has to be accessible. We don't have a locked playground anywhere in our district. Everything we met and talked about with DPI, they were completely fine with this. We are by no means the only district that does this. There are many districts that fund playgrounds and fund their community activities like this. Again, I reached out for the last year and a half to our auditor and DPI to make sure as we were moving this way, and I came with the recommendation that we weren't going to get a surprise from DPI or our auditors when we go through the end of the fiscal year and our regular audit and DPI sees it, that they don't come back and say, you put an expense here that you're not allowed to.
Okay.
So we've done our due diligence on making sure that this is approved by both entities that audit our books
Okay.
and determine whether or not this is an allowable expense and an appropriate expense.
Okay. And I get it, why this is a bone of contention. This has been a fight in Wisconsin, at least going back to 2004 when I first got involved in education. There's a giant game of whack-a-mole of how can we restrict spending at the state level? How can local school districts find a way to get around the rules around the rules, around the intent. And by the way, we have a legislature, they're not all in agreement about what the intent and what the rules are. So I don't disagree with you, Dr. Hess, about the fact that there's always a risk that the state's going to come and change something in a state budget in reaction to what school districts are doing. That's just the nature of local governments of all kinds. We're creatures of the state, that's why we exist. So I wouldn't want to hold this up just because of that. And I want to make sure that the public understands and is reassured by the fact that we have done due diligence and we're following the letter of the law, and we've got reassurances that we're not in conflict with the administrative rule that lays out pretty clearly the 4 criteria for ineligible costs. So I'm comfortable with it, but I do get it. It's a vaguely worded statute, a vaguely worded administrative rule. So thank you.
Mrs. Miltnik?
I guess I could do counterpoints. We do have administrative guidance on our safe school environment that does make it clear that the community can use our playgrounds. And I can tell you from personal experience that, our neighbors down the street have taken their grandkids, and every single one of their grandkids has learned how to ride their bike on the Emmeline Cook School playground. None of those kids live in Oshkosh. They don't go to Emmeline Cook Elementary School. Our playgrounds are for the community and are very well used by the community. Our rec department already uses a number of our playgrounds for community projects and summer playtime activity for kids. We do not limit the access to it, and I'm glad that we don't, because this is a great benefit to our entire community. And I'm very proud of the fact that we are figuring out ways that we can build these as a community to serve the community. That should be our goal here, and I am very proud of how we've managed to find ways to fund this equitably, and that all of our different varying neighborhoods that have schools will benefit from this type of policy, and I'm proud to vote to start this new process at Lakeside and Jefferson.
Thank you.
I just have a comment. So with this, my concern is not anything regarding the playground. I'm all for playgrounds, providing equitable opportunities, any and all students being able to come and utilize these playgrounds. My concern is the current policy that we have in place regarding loitering. And I think I would feel a little bit more comfortable, voting in favor of this if we were to first take up that policy.
I guess I could clarify, in no way does the word loitering include usage of a playground. Loitering is nefarious use. We do have an administrative guidance that addresses loitering. That is when you stay at a facility when you have been asked to leave or is not a proper use of it. That is not the same as kids going there and swinging or parents taking their kids to climb on the monkey bars. Our playgrounds are open to that, and I believe it's completely within at least our administrative guidelines, 8410 safe school environment, for that use.
Thank you.
And I'm going to comment back. I agree with you that our playgrounds provide a community benefit to everyone. I don't take issue with that. What I take issue with is that the allocation of 100% to community services is effectually saying that provides no benefit to the district itself, to the schools there. And that I cannot concede. I understand the DPI says this is an eligible use. I understand the auditor gives us an argument for why item 4 of PI 80 doesn't apply here. I get that. It's a question of, once you've made the determination, is this an eligible use? You have to ask the question, what is a fair allocation to the benefit? Is this entirely a community service benefit? And I can't come to that conclusion. Yet, our choosing to spend a full 100% onto Fund 80 is effectively saying that. And that's where I take issue.
Aren't all of our students community members?
They are, absolutely.
So I would say that's pretty much 100%.
There's a lot of things I might lose sleep over, especially with the new teenage driver, but one of them is not going to be funding playgrounds that I know while I was raising my kids, they all enjoyed throughout the community. We would go from school playground to school playground when they were little. And my cousins, my nieces and nephews who don't live here would do that. And then we have all kinds of studies that the city has about us lacking rec space and different things in certain areas of the city. So I'm not gonna lose sleep over my tax dollars that I pay taxes to going towards this type of usage.
Okay, are we good to call the vote? Please call the vote.
Lyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
No.
Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
No.
Smeltney.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Number 14, approval of HR market analysis for NTEA and food service positions. Is there a motion?
So move, Herzog.
Second, DeWitt.
Discussion. Mrs. Johnson. Questions for Mrs. Johnson? Dr. Herzog?
I don't have a question as much as a comment, if that's all right.
Sure.
I just want to thank you for undertaking this market analysis. I think it's really important, and it fits in with one of our KPI, at least one of our KPIs, dealing with retention of staff. And we're in a situation where we have low unemployment. Jobs are sometimes difficult to come by, and we don't want people jumping from our good employees whom we've invested in, leaving us for a dollar here or there. We want to retain our good people, and so I appreciate the market analysis you've done and the adjustments you've made. I believe some of the title changes have been long overdue, so thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Call the roll.
Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Smeltney.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Lyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Number 15, resolution authorizing the transfer of funds, the establishment of an escrow account with respect to the defeasance of certain of the general obligation school building and facility improvement bonds.
So move.
Second.
Herzog and Ford.
Yes.
Yes.
Discussion, questions for Mr. Nehans?
I'm always happy to say something on
Sure.
education finance, because I was thinking about this and trying to make sure to frame this in a way that can make logical sense. I guess I'll say I think this honors our commitment to be good stewards of the funds we approved back in April, that the public approved. And I want to try to lay out exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it from a technical place. So Drew, please let me know if I'm mischaracterizing anything that I say here. But I view this as a debt management strategy, just to make sure that we're maximizing the return on the investment that the public approved in the referendum. The better we manage that debt, the less we're going to pay in interest, which is better for our taxpayers, better for our students. So technically, we're taking this $18.3 million in bonded revenue that we received from this loan, the voters approved, and moving it into an escrow account, so a separate account. Moving that $18.3 million is technically spending, which impacts our position in the state aid formula relative to everyone else. Similar to what Dr. Hess was saying before in the previous discussion. It's kind of like moving us into a different tax bracket, which is a clumsy analogy, but one I use anyways. But that spending and that change in our relative position in the aid formula generates an estimated one-time aid increase of about $3.85 million in state aid to OASD. And because we operate under revenue limits, The new aid doesn't mean more spending. It just means $3.8 million in property tax relief. This is pure property tax relief in 2025 and 2026. So the funds in the escrow account, we invest those in municipal and state bonds that should be safe, and they should have a rate of return that is higher than the interest rate on our bond issue. That interest on our bond issue is paid through the escrow account over the life of the loan. Because the interest earned in the escrow account is higher than the interest rate on the bond, the practical impact is less debt service, so interest that's paid by taxpayers, and we're able to pay off the debt 2 years early. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So to try to put it more succinctly, we're managing our debt in a way that offsets some of the interest payments with investment earnings and generates property tax relief through more state aid. So if I'm describing that accurately, I'm happy to support this, and I know that from a less technical aspect, it's difficult to divorce this action from the, political hangover of referendum debate that was heated. And I know those divides still exist in the community around the referendum. I know those divides still exist in this body around the referendum, but I do hope, and I really do think that this community and this body can agree that it's in the best interest of OASD as a district, for the taxpayers, our students, everybody, that we manage the debt in a way that reduces our interest payments and provides property tax relief by generating more state aid. So that's why I really think this is a no-brainer. I'm happy to support this tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Hess?
Please.
With all due respect, Dr. Ford,
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with a few
Yeah,
things that
go
you had
for
to
it.
say. I totally appreciate that. This gets us $3.8 million in aid. But what that also does is means there's $3.8 million of aid that we're not going to get later, that there's only so much aid that you're getting. You're going to take it at some point. You're just choosing to take it now. The interest rate on this is quite low. And so it's a question of, can we do better with our money as an individual citizen? Can I not pay this ahead of time and do better than the interest rate that are on those bonds? And if I can, I'm actually better saving that money for myself, investing it over time, and continuing to pay the more interest. I understand we can make the argument of savings of interest, and that is true. Somebody can go buy a house, take a mortgage out for 20 years, and if they choose, they can pay it off in 4 years, and certainly that's going to save them a whole slew of interest. My biggest concern about all of this is this, that I went and looked at our district website that gave values from back in the 2020 referendum, where it told what the property impact was going to be on local property taxpayers. And here's the table that we had on the website that said the monthly impact for a property owner of the 2020 referendum, question 2, the building one, for a property that was worth $200,000, it was going to be $14 a month. And you multiply by 12 months over 3 years, that turns out that property owner who had a $200,000 house would have anticipated a $504 bill additional to their property taxes over that 3 years. But then I went and found a property at 2807 Newport Avenue, which was assessed at exactly $200,000. And in 2022, their tax bill was $741. 2023, it was $789. 2024, $877. That was $2,408 that have been taxed over the last 3 years because of that referendum, when we told them it was only going to be $504. That's my concern about all of this, is when we tell the taxpayer this is what the impact is going to be, and turn around and do something so substantially different where the tax impact is more than 4 times more than what we told them. For that reason, I can't support any of this. I understand we're in a position now where we've got the money. We kind of have to do this. But because it's associated with telling the taxpayer one thing and doing something different, I'm not comfortable with it. I appreciate that with this referendum, we told them 21.5 million is what we're going to commit to with this phase 2, and thus far, that's all I've heard. I like that we are upholding that commitment. My struggle is this is a remnant of a case where we didn't uphold the commitment to the taxpayer. So that's my struggle.
No, if I could ask you, I haven't seen those numbers ahead of time. Are you talking just about the debt levy, or are you talking about the operational levy? Because the promise we made is regarding the debt levy. The operational levy is going to change.
I'm talking about the 2020 building referendum debt levy, and this $18 million.
Yeah, I think I can clarify
Yeah.
for you. Correct, the board has taken a prepayment and a debt levy management since we passed that referendum. So the other part of the story is we also said back pre-referendum in 2020 that debt was going to total cost us $162 million, principal and interest.
Okay.
We're at about $118 million after we pay this off. So I, as a taxpayer, would rather have those $44 million I'm not obligated to pay anymore than Dr. Hess's approach of charge me the whole $162 million, because maybe I can drip an extra $200 a year into an investment to beat the return that we're going to get, which is in essence what Dr. Hess is saying, where the school board has taken the approach of we want to manage our debt, and we've been able to reduce our debt load down to where from now, after this defeasance until the rest of our debt's due on this from 2039, our actual tax impact is going to be less than 50 cents annually, which is a far cry from the 88 cents we told the taxpayers we were going to average over that 20-year life when we went to referendum in 2020.
Okay, so a couple things going on here. First, I want to point out that, each state budget's going to be different in terms of state aid and where we sit relative to everyone else. So even, the comment made about the $3.8 million that might be on the table for next year for us, that's going to be on the table in future years. We don't know that. We just don't know what that impact's going to be moving forward. We can't predict that. So we're trying to control what we can't control today. But I think the larger issue here is one about trust. I mean, and that's what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Hesse. You don't trust this body, this district, to do what we say we're going to do, to honor the commitment that we're making tonight. And I don't know what else I can say except to this body, my colleagues, and to the public, that we're going to hold the district to this. I have every intent. Didn't run for this office to not do that. But I think that's at least the main issue I'm identifying here in this conversation.
Any further comments? Thank you, great discussion. Please call the roll.
Hess.
No.
Smeltney.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Any request for future agenda items?
Can we get the food service report? In my mind, I think it would be like a 6 to 9 month thing, probably likely related to wellness.
Sure.
And I don't really care exactly how it comes about, but
Yep, okay.
I like Chris's, we can go, but Chris had a good summary of the higher level things that I think would be appropriate for the board.
Sure.
Okay. Any others?
I've got, I think, given the discussion about Fund 80, thus far in my time on this board, I have seen very high-level budgeting numbers. I think I would like to see a little more detail as to how we are choosing to spend monies on Fund 80. Probably something that goes to facilities and finance, and just provide a little more so that we can say we are taking a more closer look at it.
Great. Any announcements?
I have one. I'd like to give a shout out to the Hmong Service Center of Oshkosh that conducted another successful event this past weekend at Winnebago County Park, the National Memorial Day Remembrance, honoring the contributions of people of Lao Hmong descent, particularly those who have come to this country over the last 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give a shout out to everyone who is in music, the parents of those students, the staff. There have been a lot of concerts. There have been a lot of excitement, and the parade was absolutely exceptional with all of the musicians from the Oshkosh area. It was really well done. Okay. We'd like to move to executive session. We have 2 items where we'll be reviewing the expulsion recommendation from expulsion hearing officer for a high school student who engaged in conduct while at school or while under the supervision of a school authority which endangered the property, health, or safety of others. We have 2 of those. And we have expulsion recommendation, high school student who engaged in conduct constituting repeated refusal or neglect to obey the rules. We have 2 of those. So we have 4 in executive session tonight.
So move, Herzog.
Second, DeWitt.
What are we?
I don't know, I just followed Barb.
Was that for the?
Moving to go into executive session.
For adjournment. Right?
Yeah.
Wyman?
Aye.
DeWitt? Aye. Ford?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Snutley?
Aye.
Perfect. Meeting adjourned to executive session.
Thank you.
Before we go in there,